This yacht was no doubt a pinnacle of achievement for John and Nat. The fact that such a relatively small company was able to produce a complex America's Cup Defender, plus a bevy of one-design boats and a schooner in one winter, while maintaining their high degree of craftsmanship, illustrates the refined working relationship John and Nat had achieved. They must have been very proud that spring of 1903 when Reliance sailed out of Bristol Harbor. As the two gladiators of the sea prepared for their duel, spectators from the world over gathered for the event. Sir Thomas Lipton and a few hundred of his closest friends camped out on his steam yacht Erin to view the event. Less fortunate spectators found space on excursion boats that lined the course. Speculation and tension rode high as the key players contemplated the results of the first meeting of the yachts. Could the Herreshoff's Reliance possibly beat a boat that had been so scientifically designed in a test tank? In light winds, Reliance crossed the starting line ahead of Shamrock 3. Reliance's speed was soon evident as she methodically pulled ahead. Due to a dying wind, both skippers agreed to call the race off, but it was acknowledged that Reliance was the faster boat. It seemed that Shamrock's only hope was a superiority in heavy winds. The next race saw 16 knots of wind, and with it blew away Shamrock's hopes. Reliance won by 7.5 minutes. The crowds were now convinced of Reliance's superiority, but had to wait to confirm their beliefs. The next 4 races over 8 days were postponed due to either too much or too little wind. The feeling among Reliance's crew was, let's get it over with. In the final race, Reliance was ahead when she sailed into a fog bank. When she emerged from the other side, she had crossed the finish line and won the cup. When the fog lifted, Shamrock had sailed 5 miles off course and never finished the race. Reliance's victory was shared not only by John and Nat, but also by the craftsmen who built her. Through the years, the HMC had assembled a family of highly skilled artisans.
The workmen at Herreshoff's were a fraternity. Absolutely remarkable group of people. It was not unheard of for a man to have worked here 40 years. It's known that one of the workmen worked here for 60 years. They were just the best in their areas, whether they were painters or sail makers or whatever. They were the best, and they respected each other. They were so attentive to their work, I think, because they first of all gloried in the product that they were building and for the opportunity to work on so grand a scale. They were all communally proud of what they'd done when the product was completed. I've heard a lot of the old-time workmen saying, we complete a job and we just like to stand back and look at it and admire it and know it was the best that could be done.
Attention to detail was Herreshoff's trademark. Their finished boats were a source of pride to craftsmen and owner alike.
It was literally a turnkey operation for the owner. The owner came up to Bristol with his friends on a train. They got on the boat for the first time and they sailed it back to New York. And when they got back to New York, they were probably lacking for nothing. Everything had already been placed on the boat.
The legacy of Herreshoff craftsmen lives on today in a barn in Stonington, Connecticut. Herreshoff yacht restorers Andy Giblin and Ben Philbrick have disassembled, studied, and rebuilt several Herreshoff boats. They may understand more than anyone else the skill that went into building these boats.
We really kind of specialize in basket cases. I mean, boats that are so bad that they're $500 out of someone's backyard, and people tell us there's no possible way you can rebuild that thing. Why don't you just start from scratch and throw it away? But I think we've managed to develop techniques and gotten efficient enough that we can take a basket case, and because it has a good hardware, a ballast, and a decent rig already, you're way ahead of the game from building one from scratch. It's really kind of rare, I think, in the industry to have that kind of control on a project.
Start to finish.
Right start to finish. We encourage that because we know the owner will end up with a good, solid boat. Everything will work, there won't be any questions, and we've done enough of them, have enough experience to really set the thing up right, even to the point of putting the sails on for them and, you know, putting some chafing gear on the mooring pennant. So when the thing rolls out of the shop, and it's complete resurrection, really, sometimes is what it is from when it came in. That's pretty satisfying to see it roll down the driveway, you know, on the way to the water. That's really a good feeling. The boats came through originally complete. I mean, with anchors and horns, and you know,
Dishes
dock lines,
yeah.
and bigger boats had dishes and curtains and all the finishings. And they were expensive, but they were done and they were extremely high quality. So it's really a matter of sending a telegram or a letter and ordering a boat, and boom, the next spring it shows up and it's completely done. And I think there's a lot
to be said.
for that. Even in today, that doesn't happen very much in today's boat building world. And just as today's designers use modern materials like carbon and Kevlar and epoxy, Captain Nat took advantage of the materials available to him, the different species of wood, steel and bronze. And he selected each of those materials, I think, for their own unique physical characteristics. And he incorporated that with a very engineered design where each of the components of the structure was designed to take a specific load or do a particular function in the entire structure. And I think if you combine the individual materials with an engineered structure, you end up with an extremely light, strong boat, which ended up being very fast and lasted a very long time, probably longer than he ever expected. So he was really pushing the materials to try to get a lightweight, fast boat that performed well.
John and Nat's worldwide reputation for building fast boats kept the company busy through the early 1900s. Being in a position to enjoy the rewards of their efforts, the brothers took time for their own recreation.
It was the Herreshoff practice then, as now actually, to take a Sunday trip every Sunday in the warm weather of the year.
Nat could often be found taking family and friends sailing aboard the cat yawl, Coquina, or possibly his steam yacht, Romer.
They would go to Newport sometimes, visit E.D. Morgan at his place in Brenton Cove, or they might go out into the ocean and around to Westport, I think was a favorite place. And they would stop for lunch, and I suppose the boys would go swimming. And then they apparently had a very fine dinner right on the boat, and then they'd get underway and come back.
If you asked Captain Nat what his favorite meal was, he probably would say he liked clam bakes. He never drank coffee or tea or alcohol. I think on one occasion he had a taste of whiskey, so they say, and didn't like it.
John spent many Sundays aboard his personal steam yacht, Eugenia. He took great delight in determining the exact location of the boat by listening to the sounds from ashore, timing its travel, and studying the wind and wave direction. In a dense fog, he was more accurate in determining the yacht's location than his skipper.
Nathaniel married Clara DeWolf in 1883 and had built for his residence a very, very fine home, which still stands, at the Love Rocks.
From their waterfront home, Clara raised one daughter and 5 sons. By comparison, John had only one daughter and had divorced his wife.
John, of course, had to endure the severe social stigma of the time of being a divorced man. The subject was detailed in some of the New York gossip papers. And they took certainly Mrs. Herreshoff's side and said that she was a very patient woman, having forgiven him a number of indiscretions during their married life together, and indicated that this lady's man had gone off a number of times with certain flamboyant females, and in a contrite way, had come back and been taken back.